Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. This is your first ramblings from the road from day one of what's going to be a minimum of a 36-day road trip. This is twice as long as my longest road trip, or pretty close. I am currently just under 1 hour from my destination for the evening, Minot, North Dakota, and it's been a good day. Thoughts on traveling. First things first. It does not matter how much you prepare by any means. There's always going to be something that doesn't go the way you planned at all. So here's the deal. I get up this morning at 4 in the morning. 4:30 actually, sorry. That's kind of normal. I like to get on the road by 5 for these long trips. And what I like to do is pack everything the night before. Had almost everything in. My solar generator, my solar panels, cooler, the little battery pack. I had absolutely everything except for the very last bit, which was my suitcase and my toiletries and things like my neck knife, my wallet, my keys, which all sat in my hat. Had them all ready. So Becky and I went through everything last night to make sure I had all the credit cards and cards I needed for traveling. Put everything in my upside down hat on the end table where I always leave it to pick up to get ready to go in the morning. 4:30 in the morning, I get up. I'm out to the truck by 4:45, 10 to 5. Get everything the last little bit loaded. Go to check for my American cash. I had left that sitting on the workbench in the garage. No big deal. I was like, okay, I'll put it in my wallet. Go to put it in my wallet. No wallet. I knew I had put it in there in my hat the night before, but I was 3/4 asleep when I got up this morning, which is kind of typical for me on these road trips the first day. So I'm trying to find my wallet. I'm starting to panic a little bit. Have no idea where it is. And I knew I had everything set up perfectly fine. So I go back in the house. I start trying to be really quiet. I do not want to wake anybody up because it's like 5 in the morning at this point. Can't find it. And I'm not panicking, but I'm really pissed off at this point. So I go back out to the truck. I look again. I come back into the house. I go back out to the truck. By the third time I come in, I scare the shit out of the dogs and they all start barking like little buggers. And so what happens? It wakes Becky up, which I was starting to consider anyway. I really didn't want to do it. But I had to because I knew I wasn't going to find it on my own. When I woke up, there was a sweet little note from Alice on top of my suitcase. It said, "Love you, Dad. See you in a couple of weeks," or whatever it was exactly. And so Becky gets up. We're looking. She's like, "Do you think Alice might have put it somewhere when she was writing your note for you?" I didn't think so, but there's no way to know for sure. So I had to wake poor Alice up. We're all digging. We're going out in the backyard looking for this thing and can't find it. But funny story. Let me pause there. I get back. We're looking around. We're thinking, well, did one of the dogs get a hold of it? Did they pick it up? Did they take it outside? Which, thinking back on it now, wouldn't have made sense because they were locked into the living room. So I didn't know. So we're outside walking around with flashlights. And you know what I did find? I ordered a wireless mouse for my laptop that showed up as delivered by Purelator, but it never showed up. Well, turns out they just delivered it in a little baggie. One of the dogs got a hold of it, shredded the entire package, but I found the mouse and the battery completely undisturbed, all by itself in the grass. So anyway, after an hour of searching, we finally found it. Stupid. I had it in my hands. It was in my hat. I had my pillows in my hands, trying to carry as much as I could. It must have fell out, flipped off the hood of the truck, and flipped over into the grass next to the fence. And it was pitch dark, and we were all looking everywhere but where maybe it could be. I looked under the truck, over the truck, on top of the truck, everywhere. Nope, but we found it there. So I got on the road at 5:30 instead of 4:30. So I was about 45 minutes to an hour later than I had planned, which isn't the end of the world. I didn't mind. I'm still making great time. It is 3 o'clock Central Time, so I lost an hour at the border. And if all goes well, I should be at the Best Western in Minot for 4 o'clock. Have supper at a diner. Might try to get the oil changed. Other than that, do a little shopping, pick up some bourbon for the get-together at Nate and Aaron's. The border crossing today was as fast as I have ever had it. I was 3 minutes, and 2 minutes of those were because the commercial traffic was backed up, and we thought we had to sit there. As soon as I ducked out of the line, I realized there was no lineup in the car line at all. I got the coolest border guard I've ever had. Really nice, friendly. 2 minutes. Where are you going? Yep, land in Tennessee. Okay, have a great day. And that was it. I like that, because you never know. I mean, I tend to get really good border guards, but when it comes down to it, you know, they can make your day miserable. So I was really happy that I had a good crossing. Do you guys see those fold-up battery-powered bicycles that they have at Costco right now? I think they're in like the $400 range. They look pretty cool, but there's a lady that works at the local A&W here who bought one, and they look like they would be a really cool off-grid style vehicle. Now, they're not the heaviest duty in the world, and they only have like a 250-pound weight rating, but man, they would be awesome for a good little kind of combination solar-powered vehicle, grid down, shit hit the fan kind of scenario, because it can be run, you can run it strictly on battery, or you can do pedal assist, and I think it was something like 30 or 40 kilometers of range, which would be, what, 20 to 30 miles of range. So anyway, if anybody else has looked at those, I've looked at them. I was wondering if the kids might be interested in one, but it would just be nice to have one of those around the house for sure. I've been, you know me, every time I go to Costco, there's always something that I'm interested in picking up, of course. I have another idea. While I drive, I get lots of ideas, but me and the missus have been looking at a new set of security cameras for the daycare, because we have a set that we subscribe for and they're horrible. They're just unreliable. They're, anyway, just miserable, and we pay for them every month. We have a set at home that we don't pay for, have never paid for, and we like them way better. So I've been eyeing those up thinking, okay, maybe I should get another set of those. But she didn't really want a bunch of hardwired wires running around. So I've been looking at some all wireless security cameras. They're powered by solar panels. They send their signal via Wi-Fi. They only record when something senses movement. All of that sounds exciting, and you can top up the battery with an included USB battery pack if you ever need to. So I haven't used them, not sure if I'm going to, but on the advice of Chris Dixon, whom I trust quite a bit, and we talk about these things quite a bit, he said, why don't you run them through the attic? And of course, I don't really want to run them through the attic, but I will. So I think I've got the missus talked into going with our hardwired system again. Now, it kind of sucks, of course, because that means I also have to run power to them as well, but they're so reliable. Again, I've been using our system at home for 3 years, I think now, since 3 years in April, and it's held up beautifully. It gives me a great signal, has a decent app that I can log into and check all the time. Came with like a 2 gig hard drive that allows me, it wasn't gig. What is this, 1984? Anyway, no, it's a 2 terabyte hard drive that allows me to save 30 days worth of high definition video, and then it just automatically overwrites. So it's a really good system. The only thing you need to supply is some sort of monitor if you want to be able to live monitor it in your office or wherever, and that's what I do. But I'd still like to try one of those solar powered security cameras. So if any of you guys have had any luck with them, let me know, because I would not mind trying one out. I think I'll still pick one up just to see. Another idea, I've always wanted driveway sensors, but the problem is we live in town where there's lots of animals coming and going all the time, And yes, I don't have a very long driveway, and it's on the back of an alley. But I came up with the idea today that, I mean, anybody who would be coming into our yard would have to enter the front or the back of the driveway. And I think if I put the driveway sensors up just high enough, cats and dogs would not affect it. Not that there's many dogs running around. So I'm thinking about trying something like that. I'm thinking about linking it to another security camera. So I might do some sort of combination driveway sensor with a solar panel. Just if for no other reason, I can test it out and give you guys some feedback on it. As well, I've been listening this morning to Borrowed World. And the last straw was that I saw Lee was reading it, Cold War Prepper, in his fiction post-apocalyptic book club, which I thought was really cool. And people kept telling me, I think Nate had mentioned it, Chris Dixon had mentioned it, and then I saw Lee had been reading it. And for some reason, the name Borrowed World, to me, even both the title and the screenshot or cover art on Audible both made me think a little bit like it was, young adult fiction, like that kind of stuff, the things like I wasn't super keen on. So like the Maze Runner and Fifth Wave, but boy, was I wrong. Wow, was I ever wrong. This is an incredible book. It is very, very similar to Going Home, but it's very enjoyable as well. Slightly different. It has a collapse that would be, no, I guess it's a collapse that's different than any of the other kind of prepper porn that I've read. This one is due to terrorist attacks on infrastructure. So it's not an EMP, it's not a slow collapse, it's not a nuclear strike or anything like that. The narrator, audiobook reader, is the same guy that did Glenn Tate's 299 Days, he is a pleasure to listen to. I could listen to him all day. And it's cheap enough. You can get, so there's 9 or 10 volumes, and you can get the first 3 books in volume, let me back up. So you can get the first 3 books in volume 1. There's 2 volumes you can get, but there's 10 books altogether. So books 1 through 3 is in volume 1 for a single credit on Amazon, and it's 25 hours of listening time. Volume 2 is books 4 through 6, same thing, but it's 1 credit, about 25 hours on Audible as well. So that is seriously your money's worth just for that. But then after that, I think you got to buy books 7 through 10 individually. But I'm hooked so far. Very much. I mean, he's every bit as good a writer as Angry American, maybe even a little bit better. But yeah, the story's great. And it is, I mean, if you read it, it really does feel like Going Home. With the collapse being maybe a little more similar to 299 Days. Except that, 299 Days was kind of an economic collapse, whereas these terrorist attacks cause an economic collapse. So, yeah, anyway. But, yeah, if you read it, you'll definitely have shades of Morgan from Going Home books. And I would totally recommend it, at least to this point. I've made it through book 1, and I'm 3 or 4 chapters into book 2 today. Listening to it at 1.5 times speed, I believe, with no loss of, recognition or anything like that. So yeah, give it a shot, guys. I'm going to try, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but I'm going to try to do kind of an audio journal of this trip. I know I don't always have super interesting things happen to me while I'm driving, but I do have a lot of alone time where I can stop and think and write some notes down. So I'm going to try to do one every day. Now, it may be possible that I don't always get one done, especially on days when I'm at, say, prepper camp, but I'm going to work on it the best I can for you. It'll be good. Just saw my first Dollar General, and I've been in the U.S. for way less than an hour, so there's that. Yeah, beyond that, guys, I'm excited. I can't wait to get to prepper camp, but before we do that, I'm going to be at Nate and Aaron's place for the workshop / Two Chicks Homestead get together. And something else. So in this book, The Borrowed World, they're kind of talking about rationing their gas for generators. And I fixed a fridge recently. Trust me, this all connects eventually. I fixed a fridge. I thought it had died. Took it out of the 12-unit apartment building, put a new fridge in there. But I always bring the appliances back to the garage to either learn from them or fix them. And it turned out this one was just so covered in dust underneath that the compressor was overheating and turning off. As soon as I took my DeWalt cordless blower to it for about 3 minutes, let it sit overnight, turned it back on, it's worked perfectly for 6 or 8 weeks now. So I have this idea, I don't know if you'd be interested in it, but I'm going to fill the fridge with, I don't know, maybe not frozen water, but some sort of thermal mass that I can get in there. And then I'm going to put a cordless thermometer sensor in it. And then I'm going to run it via generator, see how much gas it takes to bring it back to temperature, and then leave it until it gets into the danger zone again. And I'm going to do that back and forth to see how long theoretically you could actually run a fridge off of a very small amount of gas. So if you're interested, let me know. I like that idea quite a bit. And a couple more thoughts before I call it quits today. But, I love, the joys and the tribulations of property management. And it's always funny. I've got Nick and Leia who are taking care of things for me, so I have no concerns. But without fail, and I told Becky this, I expected a phone call before I left. Without fail, I always have some sort of maintenance issue to deal with the day before I take a trip. And that's fine, because I like that. It keeps my mind off things. And I wasn't stressed out at all on this trip ahead of time, which was great. So yeah, one of the girls in one of the 12 units there calls me yesterday and said, hey, shower head's dripping. Actually, she said her tub was leaking. I thought, oh, that sounds really bad, but it wasn't that bad. It was just a tiny leak. So I tightened up the cartridges. Eventually, they're going to have to be replaced, but there's always a phone call. And then, of course, I had a guy who said, hey, I'm going to move in Tuesday or Wednesday. As soon as I get the money from the company, he's moving in early anyway. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And of course, Tuesday I'm home, Wednesday I'm on the road. So that didn't happen. So he's moving in today, but I had him set up to go in. But it's just always the things that happen after I hit the road. And one other thing, and I've mentioned this to you guys a bit before, but I don't quite get. I mean, okay, I don't want this to come across as judgmental or anything, because it's not how it's supposed to sound. But every tenant is the perfect tenant until they're not the perfect tenant. I guess that would be the way to put it, right? So I've been dealing with somebody who has paid their rent on time or early every month they've lived in this apartment that they're in. All of a sudden I get a message from the owner, hey, they didn't pay their rent this month. Okay. So I went to visit them the other day, knocked on the door to give them a notice because their phone wasn't working, and they're sound asleep on their couch. I thought, what the hell's going on? So everything had been fine until all of a sudden it wasn't, and now they haven't paid the rent, and they lost their job, and blah, blah, blah. And there would be there'll be some flexibility there on the parts of the owners, which is fine. But when it comes down to it, how does that happen? How do you, everything's good until it wasn't, and it was 100% self-inflicted. So it's not like it was a surprise to the dude. It's tough because you want to handle people well, you want to take good care of them and treat them well, but you always have to assume that even the most perfect tenant in the world is 2 weeks away from becoming a real difficult person to deal with. And that sucks because I like people a lot. Oh yeah, so anyway, just something to keep an eye on. It doesn't keep me from being nice to people. I also had 3 rentals come up last month. They were all rented within a day or so. But once September 1st came and went, I'm like, this is great. I have nobody putting in their notice, which means I'll have nobody moving out for the first of the month while I'm on the road. I mean, I've got it covered with my worker, but I like dealing with those if I can. And we had one other tenant who has been kind of iffy with their rent all along. Always kind of a fight. Always a month or 2 behind with the landlord. But the landlord wouldn't tell me until they were a month or 2 behind and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I called him the other day because the landlord messaged me and said, hey, they're behind in the rent again. And he's like, yep, I'll have it paid up by the end of the month, but also I'm moving out. Oh, okay. Well, you didn't give me a month's notice. But at this point, when somebody says something like that, you're kind of, especially if they've been up and down with the rent, you're kind of happy to get rid of them and just be thankful for the money you do get. Because at that point, if you try to push your luck, sometimes they just end up doing damage to the property or something. Not that I think this guy would. He's an okay guy who just struggles. So there is somebody moving out. And last night, so for the last little while, the toilet in the house has been draining really slow. Not slow, but just slower than it should. And sometimes you'd have to flush it twice. And I wasn't really sure what was going on. We were thinking there was something in the toilet, but I just never took the time to diagnose it because, we'd blame it on the kids or whatever. We didn't know. And every so often, the drain line, so the entire drain line, the main drain where it comes into the house, the sewer line, was replaced. But the line that's left in the house under the cement floor in the basement is the old cast iron. So there's probably 20 feet of old cast iron in the floor of the basement. And so every so often it starts running a little slow down there. And so I'll go down and open up the vent, and usually all it takes is plunging it a little bit and then running some real hot water through it. And that's fine. But there's a floor drain down there that kind of vents or runs into that same thing. So if you have problems, that sewer line can back up into your basement. Well, guess what? Getting ready to go to bed last night before today's trip, and that's exactly what it did. It just started backing up a little. So I don't know if it's the furnace drain, the gunk that comes out of that, because it is pretty thick and slimy sometimes, that's draining in there, but something was clogging that up. So I should have quite a while ago snaked it, but I didn't have my snake with me last night, so I dumped a whole bottle of the really heavy-duty drain cleaner down it. Well, it stunk up the whole house for the better part of an hour. But you know what? It cleared the line completely, and everything's draining properly. And one of my rules of thumb is always fix a loose screw. Yet, for some reason, I couldn't be bothered to do it this time, or just never got around to doing it. Hence my rule of thumb to always fix a loose screw. But I did it, got it fixed just in time for bed, and yeah, so there you go. That was the fun of getting this trip ready. I'll keep some notes tomorrow while I drive. By the end of the day, just as I'm pulling into the hotel, I'll record you day 2 of ramblings from the road from the epic 36-day road trip. So guys, I appreciate you, and as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.